Hello, everyone. My guest today is Joe Malcoun. He's the CEO of Nutshell, a sales automation tool for SMBs. He also co-founded an Ann Arbor-based co-working space called Cahoots and recently acquired The Blind Pig, an iconic live music club. He loves live music, paddles, wood canvas canoes better than he rides a bike, and has a severe weakness for good food and drink. Joe, you ready to take us to the top?
Let's do it, man.
All right, so how much drink do I have to give you before the numbers just start coming out?
Well, as long as it's Negronis, it doesn't matter. Just will do fine, man. Come out to Ann Arbor. We'll go drink some Negronis together.
That's awesome. All right, so tell me about Nutshell. What's the company do, and how do you make money?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you're pretty familiar with our segment after reviewing some of your archive podcasts. So Nutshell is a small business focused CRM, and I think like in the realm of CRMs where we sort of lean is more towards sales automation and sales pipeline management. Obviously, the term means a lot of things to a lot of folks, but we've been around actually for about 9 years. We've been around a lot longer than I think most people think, and always focused on SMBs from day one. We haven't lost focus on that. We haven't been chasing a higher ASP or anything like that. And I think that might be one thing that sets us apart in a sea of products that are very difficult to set apart. We designed the product day one so it doesn't look like enterprise software, and we never want it to look that way.
Yeah. Okay. So you obviously have a price today, your ASP that you onboard new folks at, but when you look at historical data, what are average customers paying you per month right now today?
So right now, ASP is about $100.
Okay, per month.
And, per month, and that takes into account a lot of historical pricing, right? So, for example, we've got folks who up until recently were paying $5 a seat on a product that we're now charging, anywhere up to $30, $40 a seat for. So we actually just did a price increase, which was an insane process on all legacy pricing. And so we bumped some of those up, but yeah, so about $100.
Okay, wait, Joe, tell me about that, because by the way, I'm a big fan of like, if you're going to make a pricing change, don't be a wimp. Don't grandfather people, tell them they have to upgrade it. If they churn, it means they weren't getting value anyway. So
yeah, I saw that, right? Like we took a big hit on customer churn, but our net overall, MRR coming out of it was a huge success. And also what it did was it closed the gap for some of those customers to our pro product. And so the price difference wasn't quite as big as it once was. So we actually ended up pulling a lot more folks into the pro product. And then here was the big thing that I think folks need to keep in mind. This was a huge surprise that we didn't anticipate. I wish we had. We were able to offer folks the opportunity to lock in their price for an annual contract when they were normally in a monthly. And a ton of people did that. So we were able to get a ton of cash up front and lock folks in. And it was so total like win-win-win, right?
So basically what you're saying is offer the annual lock-in price. At the same time, you're saying, look, we are a company who will increase pricing. We're increasing it right now.
You're going to get an increase in a year, but if you lock it in now, at least you get another year at what you're at. We wrote a pretty great, our content person wrote a really great piece on this. I can send you a link later. And it's really cool because it's all.
Yeah. So let me just jump into like a few quick numbers here. So before the price increase, total number of customers was what?
Before the price increase, it was about 2,800.
Okay. And after the price increase was done, what'd that drop to?
I'd say net, we probably lost. That's a good question. I'd say like maybe 100, 150.
Okay. So maybe 2,700 customers after.
Now we're back up to like 3,000.
Okay. So today you have 3,000 customers. Yeah. Okay. And they're all paying kind of that $100 a month. So you're doing about $300,000 a month?
Yeah. No free product. That's about 13,000 users, 3,000 logos.
Okay. So again, about $300,000 a month in revenue?
Yeah, a little bit north of there. But
that's great. Okay. And then let's understand growth. So a year ago, where were you at?
So you know what? I should clarify something. Yeah. Our ASP is 100, but our ARPA is north of there. Right?
Okay. What's the ARPA?
ARPA is about $130 right now.
Okay, so that would increase your revenue. You're actually doing about like $390,000 a month, something like that.
A little bit south of there, but yeah.
Okay, good. So 130 ARPA, which is average. That's basically average revenue per user historically, not their average selling price moving forward. So 130 across 3,000 customers.
What happens with us is people sign up often with one seat, and then in the next couple of weeks they load their whole team on. So ASP is artificially low.
Yes, that's why I always like to talk more about ARPU versus ASP, right? ASP is a landing, the initial price point, but it expands. Okay, good. So 390, and okay, so January 2019, you're caught, a little south of 390 a month. What were you doing exactly a year ago?
Let me check ChartMogul.
Okay. Do you like ChartMogul, by the way?
Yeah, well, it's going to be my answer to your question about my favorite tool. I'm unnecessarily obsessed with it. I think, and this is not, I don't want to use this opportunity to dig on ChartMogul. There's a shitload of room for improvement. And if I sold Nutshell tomorrow, I might jump into this space because I obsess over it. And I still see a ton of areas where I would like to see some improvement. So about a year ago, we were like 3.2.
Okay. Per you're talking about ARR, which would be about 260 grand a month. Yeah. Okay, great. So 260 grand. Now you're up to call it 360, 370-ish range. That's a nice, healthy growth. Most of that come from expansion on historical cohorts, adding seats or brand new logos.
It's about 50-50, I'd say. Our net ends up being about 50-50 both. Once you take out the single seat customers, which I know a lot of folks are cohorting out now and they talk about unit economics, we're basically negative churn to zero on net MRR.
What's break that down, peel that onion for me. What's gross churn and then what's expansion to get to the zero?
Great. So gross is we target just under 4%.
Monthly logo?
Yeah, with the one-seaters. That drops to about half, to about 2% when you take one-seaters out. And then you go to like greater than 5 and it's negative.
Yeah. So just to be clear, though, without going on the cohort analysis under each thing, you have about overall your whole base. You have about 4% monthly logo. What's the revenue churn?
3.5.
Okay, so 3.5.
Monthly.
So monthly,
logos.
And you're also expanding by 3.5 monthly, the same cohort. So net zero.
Yeah.
That's great. And again, any other axes you're using, pricing axes you're using to drive expansion besides additional seats?
Yeah, we do have sort of a tiered product. We have our starter and our pro. And so what we do is we kind of proactively look through our customer product usage and we see what they're doing and the questions they're asking support. And if it makes sense, we'll outbound to them and say, hey, listen, it looks like you might be able to benefit from pro. And here are the features that would specifically work. So they're feature
upsells, not other usage-based upsells like number of contacts or things like that.
From the beginning, we kind of had this perspective that like storage is cheap and to sort of limit it didn't make a lot of sense.
Not
to
just
us.
Storage, anything.
Yeah, right.
No, Joe, I'm asking you a question. So your current kind of metric-based pricing is number of seats. Is there any other kind of metric you drive upsells against?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking why storage versus features.
No.
Yeah, no. We only the only upgrade is by seats and product tier.
Okay, got it. Very good. And then talk to me about CAC. To land a new $100 a month customer, what are you paying fully weighted?
We're so fully weighted with the team and everything.
Yep.
We're in like the $800 range.
Okay, so that's healthy. 8-month payback, gross margin payback. What, 12 months?
Yeah, about 12 to 14 months.
And where are you spending the 800? Obviously, there's salaries in there, but the direct paid spend, where are you putting it?
Yeah, so I would say like most of our direct paid spend is on AdWords, which frankly speaking, we've been dialing back.
It's competitive. You're in the CRM. I mean, those keywords are really expensive.
And it's just inflating over time. Look, this whole game, it's a spiral to the bottom. A lot of my competitors have raised tens and tens of millions of dollars, and it hasn't gone to their product. Our products don't look any different. It's gone to AdWords and Facebook. Actually, we cut Facebook out entirely. We don't do anything on Facebook.
Where do you spend today?
AdWords and Capterra mostly.
Okay, why Capterra? Why is it performing better? Capterra keywords can get pretty expensive too.
So here's what we found out. We're not the biggest brand, right? We didn't raise the most money to get the biggest bullhorn. But where we can compete like consistently is product. When people are looking at our product and they're sincerely curious about the quality of the product versus others, that's where we feel like we have the most competitive advantage. People who are looking at Capterra are looking at product, or they're comparing products. They're not just looking for the loudest voice or the loudest brand in the marketplace. So that's why we've been really successful there.
Yeah, I mean, because so Monday's putting a ton of money into both these channels, Capterra, G2 Crowd. Same thing with like Fresh Sales. We had the Fresh guy on. They're prepping to go public here soon. What you're saying is, and I see you listed it, but I have to scroll down the page pretty far. I mean, you've got 330. Yeah, I'm on Capterra, 330 reviews. So how do you actually get traffic though from here? I mean, how many leads do you get from here per month?
I have a theory that Capterra is more important of a display channel than it is a click-through channel.
Okay.
So as long as you're above the fold or slightly below it, I think that consumer is a little bit more sophisticated. And what they're doing is they're reading about you and they're not clicking the contact me button or whatever it is. They're going direct to your website and then we're following them through as like organic traffic. It's a theory, but we kind of saw a dip once in organic. And as we started to track through what it might look like, it seemed like it corresponded pretty closely.
But give me a sense of what your exposure is to Capterra? Are we talking $5,000 a month or $100,000, like $50,000 a month?
No. We're probably spending somewhere in the neighborhood of like $5,000 to $10,000 on any given month.
Okay.
And our AdWords budgets have gone, we spend everything from like $10,000 a month to $120,000 a month. I think like right now we're probably spending somewhere in the neighborhood of like $35,000 a month.
On AdWords?
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Why only Capterra? Why not G2 Crowd?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think we struggled early. It's funny too. I'm an indirect investor in G2 through a fund. And I love them. I think what they do, and I think that team is so awesome. What we found was your team had to be set up in a certain way to like be competitive with the way that they handled leads historically. And they're now changing the model. And we're actually going to go back into it and try it again. But the way they were doing it before, you kind of had to have a really, really proactive outbound team ready to hit the lead and pick up the phone. And we're actually mostly an inbound shop. We've got like one salesperson. It's just not how we operate. We're almost exclusively self-serve. So we just weren't like set up to handle those leads quite as effectively as, say, with Capterra.
Mm-hmm. So total team size today is what?
25.
Okay, got it. Mostly engineers, or what's the breakdown?
It's half engineering, and then the rest is sort of broken down. We got 4 people on customer support here in Ann Arbor. They're super awesome and good at what they do. Then the rest of the team is marketing, sales, and then myself and the CTO.
So everyone up there in Michigan?
Yeah, we've got 2 remote folks, but it's all circumstantial right now. We're never set up as a remote work company, but I don't have strong feelings either way.
How'd you capitalize the business? Bootstrapped or raise?
Yeah, it's actually a really interesting story. So the company was originally founded by 3 of my business partners on some other efforts, plus my CTO, Andy Fowler. And they had sold their first company to Barracuda Networks. And They built that into Barracuda's entire backup division. So they built that into a $100 million product line. After they kind of got going at Barracuda, they wanted to do this side project. They brought Andy up to Ann Arbor, and they funded the company with a little bit of capital out of their own pockets. And then Barracuda came in with a little bit of money just to kind of like align with the founders so they wouldn't get distracted. And then fast forward a few years, I was hired as CEO about almost 5 years ago. And at that point, I invested the company, the founders reinvested, Barracuda reinvested. And then we brought in like effectively one outside institutional investor, a local fund that we're good friends with. So we have very little capital in the company, about $5 million preferred.
Yep.
It's 80% of the company is basically owned by myself, the founders, and our friends.
Yep. That's great.
It's kind of our superpower right now. We were kind of into the capital efficiency thing before it was cool. And
why not leverage? You guys are in a great position to leverage something like non-dilutive venture debt. Why not leverage venture debt instead of using your own money?
Oh, that's a really good question. At the time, I don't think we were in the position to do that. I don't think we had the operating history or the metrics to do it. 2, it's a little bit of what we're in the business of doing. And I go back and forth on this, but I like to invest in startups. And part of me is kind of like, look, if I have the capacity to invest in others, I'll invest in myself. I'm like pretty comfortable investing in myself. And, that's just kind of been one of our sort of ways of operating in general. I don't think it's for every business. And frankly, I don't think that this business and this segment as a point solution, I don't think anyone's going to win by dumping tons of capital on the cap table. I think those guys are really, really screwed, to be honest.
Just go back to my question for a second. Venture debt does not go on the cap table. Venture debt is great for I'm conflating and sort of moving on a bit, but yes, that's right. We weren't in a position to raise venture debt. Why?
Because our metrics weren't there at the time that we were going to put money in.
Which metric?
We're talking. The company was at $1 million of ARR at the time.
Yeah.
We didn't have the relationships. We didn't have a leadership team. So when I came into the company, you have to keep in mind, it was basically a side project. It had 9 engineers. That was the company. And it had like 1,000 customers or so. There was no marketing. There was no executive leadership. There was no customer support. So what we said was, let's put a little bit of money in.
How much did you put in when you joined?
Myself personally?
Yeah.
I think I put like 150 or 200. Yeah. And so we put a total of $1 million at that time. And we basically were like, let's just see what happens. We actually had term sheets for like $5 million, sort of Series A like rounds. And we kind of decided we didn't know what the hell to do with that money. We didn't know if we could figure out how to get the right return on it, but we did have the capacity to fund the company ourselves without taking too big of a leap, right? So we did that. And to be honest, like maybe the actual honest answer to your question is I just didn't cross our mind that venture debt was an option at that point.
Yeah. Like, I mean, by the way, fair answer. It just might not be something that you went down that rabbit hole on, which is fine. You're juggling 7,000 things. I'm just saying from my mind, if you know that you've kind of got this CAC, right? And
at the time, we didn't have any of those metrics proven
yeah. So
out.
let's just fast forward to today. So like venture debt today, right? If you know you have this CAC and you kind of know the channels you're experimenting with, you could easily go raise 3x your current MRR. So let's say that's $1 million. That's non-dilutive, go leverage it. Now, the reason you wouldn't do that is if you didn't feel like there was an arbitrage play there where you could put that money to work and beat the interest rate you're paying on that money.
So here's, I don't know, maybe we're just not good at what we do, but here's the thing I figured out. I can't spend more money in AdWords and get the return I want. I don't expand my head count and get the return I want. We're smaller than we frankly ever been in the last couple of years, but we're growing at the same rate. I burned 1/10 of the amount last year as I did it the prior year, and we grew at the same rate.
How much did you burn last year?
I don't know.
What are you burning today? Are you break even?
We're break even, purposely break even.
Okay.
We're basically taking our profits and investing it back in product.
Okay, but you're not in the red each month.
No.
Okay, that's great. That's very good. Okay, that's great. Let's wrap up here. We got off the track there, Joe, but it was a good conversation. Okay. Let's wrap up here with the famous 5. Number 1, what's your favorite business book?
So I don't. I love reading, but I'm like a fiction guy.
We'll say none.
I don't know. Is it fair to say that 100 Years of Solitude is a business book?
Yeah, that's fine. Number 2, name a CEO you're following or studying.
So I like to follow Mark Benioff, but mostly because I find it amusing that I like to pretend like we're social equals in the CRM space. So if Salesforce isn't doing business in South Carolina because of gender equality issues, neither is Nutshell. All right. So
that's funny. I love that. Number 3, what's your favorite online tool for building the company?
ChartMogul. I mean, I really have a weird addiction.
Oh, what would you what would you change about it? You said there's room for improvement.
Come on. Number 1 mobile app. Like, where is it? Come on. Like, it's just, and so here's the other thing I do. I have this little Google sheet that I keep a window open with every month, and it's not sophisticated. There's no intelligence behind it, but all it effectively does is it takes my transactions, right? Like each of the transactions, I update the number of them. I update the value each day, and it projects, and it gives me a sense of how well am I doing over last month, but where am I heading? Right? Like it gives me a little bit of a future view, and it's dumb and it's really wrong most of the time, but at least it gives me a little bit of a sense of how good the month is trending to be. And so I'd like to see them build in a little bit of like, well, what does the future look like a little bit?
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that hard.
Full disclosure, I'm looking at getting very aggressively into this space for the exact reasons you just articulated. Like you have some interesting tools like Baremetrics, ProfitWell, ChartMogul that are in this space, but you can't just spit data out. You have to give it utility value, like what you just said.
Yeah. 100%. So the reason I'm in it every day is not to be in it. It's to update my little widget.
Yeah. Yeah. Ideally, it's most effective if you spend less time in it per day because it means it's doing what it's supposed to do.
Well, and also like someone said to me, I kind of made a comment about I'm checking ChartMogul too often. They said, well, are you making decisions that often?
Listen, I'm the same way. Like the only notifications I have turned on my phone are my Stripe notifications because that's like, as entrepreneurs, is what we care about. It's a dopamine hit.
Well, let me know if you're going to go down that path. I want to talk more about that.
Yeah, I'll move that offline. I've got some stuff in the works I think you'll latch onto. All right, number 4. How many hours of sleep do you get every night?
Oh, I get a solid 7.
Okay, and what's your situation? Married, single, kiddos?
Yeah, I'm married 13 years. I have 3 young kids. I've got twins who are 8 and a 6-year-old.
That's awesome.
They're really funny and awesome. Yeah,
I love that, man. All right, and how old are you?
I am 41.
41. Last question. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
I wish I'd known back then that what inspires me is who I spend my time with and not what I'm selling.
Yep. Guys, spend time with people you like because ultimately that is what matters. Again, building his team out, nutshell, avoiding going and raising $50 million and diluting the hell out of him and his team. They've raised and basically self-funded most of this actually. $5 million into the company, break even today. Have about 3,000 paying customers at $130 a month. So doing about 360, 70, 80-ish, 90 per month. That's up from 260 grand a month just a year ago. So healthy growth, team of 25 in Michigan, and then 2 remote folks, 3.5% monthly revenue churn, 3.5% expansion though also. So 100% net revenue retention, $800 CAC, 12-month payback. Joe, thanks for taking us to the top.
Oh man, that was impressive.